All right, guys, the time is here. It is time to unveil what I consider to be the biggest and baddest bike ever built on the E-Ride platform. But it's not so much about the bike and the components that it has. We will go over that in a different video. We're gonna talk all things Cirrus, how these CMX forks actually perform, what you can expect when you get them out of the box, and we'll kind of go through if it makes sense for you to purchase such an expensive suspension package to get the performance out of this bike that it honestly needs. All right, so let's start digging into the specifics. The things that you probably want to know about this kit, why it's so expensive maybe, and what you're gonna receive when you purchase it, if you purchase it, or if you're looking at this kit. So you're getting a 220 millimeters of travel in your forks. So you are getting 220 millimeters of stroke, essentially, in your fork tubes and your fork. That is so much different from what you get from the factory. You only get 200 millimeters of complete travel on the front fork when you purchase this bike stock. Now, personally, the Fast Ace suspension, in my opinion, is way too soft. The CMX tune is gonna be a little bit harder because it is geared towards like hardcore trail riding, enduro style riding, or moto riding, like real moto track guys. So this kit's going to improve the stability in the front end just by having additional travel and allowing you to soak up the hits that come along with this style of riding. Another piece is the drop clamp. You will be able to get a drop crown on this bike or on this kit, and it will lower your forks even more, which will allow for a 21-inch front on this bike. Let me tell you why I think that's important. After riding this bike about 175 miles, exactly as it is, with the EBMX and the Cirrus tune or the Cirrus kit on it with the Arma shock, I noticed that having a 19-inch front, rolling over big roots or big rocks is just increasingly more difficult. It's not that it's impossible. You can lift your front end up really easy with this bike because the amount of torque that it has, so it definitely gives you some leverage there. But when you're just cruising down a trail and it's like flowy or whoopy, you want more in the front end. That's what I've noticed. I just feel like I want more from the front end of this bike, not in the suspension side, but I want to be able to hit rocks head on and not have to really worry about the stabilization, because going over a large rock with a smaller front wheel, it becomes a little bit unstable, and that's a sketchy feeling, especially with the speed that this bike can get you up to 40 miles an hour on a trail with a big rock, and you hit that rock, you want to be able to roll over that and just really not even notice it. I feel like having this suspension and not having a 21 it just doesn't work for me. So 21 is something we're definitely working on. How can we get a 21 on the front of this? I do believe that the E-Ride 2.0 KKE 21s will fit this bike or this setup. The problem is the hubs on those KKE wheels are not as beefy in diameter. They're just not built for the power that this bike delivers. So it may pose an issue, but I think that's what we're going to test out first, just to get a 21 on here, see how the bike behaves in that configuration, and then go from there. The drop crown is going to give you 25 millimeters of additional length on your front end. So essentially you're going to be able to drop your forks in the triple clamp 25 more millimeters. So that is going to give you some more spacing. Now what you have is 178 millimeter fork spacing. So you have 178 millimeters from one side to the next. Now you will notice, if you have seen one of these in person, the camera probably doesn't know justice. This front end became so much bigger than a factory E-Ride Pro SR. It is now beefed up in such a massive way. The fork tubes on this bike are incredibly large. They are the same exact size and diameter, from what it seems like, as what comes on the Surron Ultra B. So the Ultra B kit is obviously a much bigger, beefier kit. Now this kit is going to add about 10 pounds to your bike's overall weight. So you're gonna have 10 more pounds on the front end of this bike than what comes factory. It's not the end of the world because the bike has so much power that you really don't notice an additional 10 pounds, but that's just something to take into consideration depending upon how you're loading this bike, where this bike is stored. If you're on a second story apartment and you keep it up there, I mean, just know that you're gonna have a little bit more weight to drag up the stairs. But this setup is for what I would consider the very advanced riders. It is not necessarily something that everybody needs. I'm not here to sell you a part. I don't want to sell you this if this is not what you need or what you think you need. But if you're riding this bike and you want to take this bike to the next level, you want to push this bike beyond what it's capable of from the factory, then this is an absolute must, and there's really no way around it. All right, so let's talk about that 178 millimeters of fork spacing and why this is so wide. As you move up from an 18, 19 to a 21-inch tire, they get a little bit wider. And if you've put a big tire on a small frame bike that has forks that are designed for a thinner wheel, you'll notice that you're gonna get some rubbing, or you could get some rubbing. This 178 millimeters of spacing allows for you to put those big tires on, for them to move up in the fork and not have any rubbing issues whatsoever. The outer tubes, all made of 77,000 series aluminum with type 3 hard anodized coating. I will say from experience, I have dropped my Ultra B, wrecked my Ultra B, tumbled my Ultra B. Last time I was on a hard enduro ride on my Ultra B, I got caught up on a route, the bike fell, I grabbed the bike and flipped it over, and so I could get it in a better position for me to pick it up. I still have absolutely no damage done to my forks at all. It is a huge testament to what Cirrus does. You're not paying for just a regular kit. You are getting the most premium kit if this is what you decide to do, so it's something to take into consideration. But having a very serious hard anodized coating on the outside, it's gonna save you more ways than you can imagine, especially if you're pushing this bike probably beyond its limits. You got a billet triple clamp with that drop crown. So the drop crown is also billet. It's important to have the most premium products on a bike like this, especially if you're building it to the nines like we are and trying to push this thing as far as we can. It is very important that we have the best products and the most well sought after things on this bike to push it as hard as we can. So just like everything else that Cirrus does, they do it in a way that most manufacturers of most products for this space, this industry, just don't do it this way. I'm going to go at EXT at this point, and it's not any beef with EXT because I love the Ferro forks, I love the Arma shock. I think it is an absolutely awesome kit. Everything that that company does is great, and I'm happy with the way that my bike rides with those pieces and components on it. However, you're paying a premium price for a product that it's lacking some of the little things, the details, I would say. So the Cirrus kit comes with a true motorcycle steer lock, and that's something that no other manufacturer in the E-moto space does. And quite honestly, I don't know why. I think it's just a money thing, honestly. It just comes down to how can they shave a couple bucks off the price of the kit, and that's good for the consumer, but at the end of the day, you want a product that's gonna stand the test of time. So a steer lock is a stem lock. In most traditional E-motos that you see behind me and you see around me, they have a star nut pounded into a head tube with a small bolt that keeps your triple clamp tight. That's not an effective system. The second we get a bike, especially one we're building for ourselves, we take that thing out and we put in a full Warp 9 stem lock. That stem lock is much better than the star style stem locks. However, the steer nut, the steering mechanism that compresses your upper and lower triple clamp together from Cirrus, is built into the forks. It's a small detail that most people really probably don't pay a ton of attention to, but if you ride any type of motocross bike or any dirt bike whatsoever, that is the style of product, or that is the style of mechanism that is used to keep your forks tight, or your triple clamp tight. And it's just the way that this should be. So as this market evolves, Cirrus is kind of taking the leap of doing things what I would consider the right way from the very beginning. That way we have the most bomb-proof products that we can possibly get. Yes, the Cirrus kit, you're paying a pretty penny for it, but you're getting the best of the best, and especially in the E-moto market, there is nothing that compares to riding on a set of Cirrus forks. And I've ridden all the bikes, factory, aftermarket, all the suspension kits. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing that compares to the planted feeling that you get with a pair of Cirrus forks on your bike. And it's incredible that there's really no way to make that make sense to you verbally. You would have to feel it, but once you do, you'll probably never go back. So the way that this kit comes from the factory is a little bit different than what they did for the Ultra B. release in the Ultra B kit. The Ultra B kit had like a bunch of different weight ranges that I think they kind of realized that they only really sell a majority of 2. So this is only available in 2 weight ratings. You have 140 to 180 pound rider, which is a huge spectrum of people. And then you have a 180 to 220. Now, if you're over 220, you need to get the 180 to 220. If you're under 140, you need to get the 140 to 180. That's all the options that they have available. And I think that's enough. Quite honestly, I think you cover probably 80 to 85% of the market with just those 2 weight ranges. And that slims down the amount of work that they have to do on the back end to put new springs in them and more pieces and components that you have to have available, when realistically, this is the sweet spot for the market. This is what most people need. I'm 175 pounds where I'm at right now, and I probably weigh 185 with all my gear on, and I ride the 140 to 180. It just makes sense for me, and honestly, I have had absolutely 0 issues with jumping, with taking big rocks, big roots, hard riding. This thing has held up just fine. I like my suspension to be a little bit more plush, and if I have to stiffen it up, I have all the clickers and all the adjustment options to do so. So right now, this kit is available for the E-Ride Pro SR. It is also available for the E-Ride Pro 3.0, Talaria MX5. There are several more coming. I forget them off the top of my head, but you will be able to get this kit for just about any bike that you want. Now, with that oversized fork spacing, you will receive the proper spacers for your front wheel. So, and you'll receive a new axle. So you're not gonna need your old axle or your old spacers. You will be receiving new spacers as well as a new axle. That way everything mounts up perfectly, exactly how you expect it to. And that is one thing about Sirris, is they take great time and put in a lot of effort to make sure the kit that you get, and obviously you're paying a premium price, so you expect this, but the kit that you get is ready to go, and it has everything that you need. Now, on the bottom of every fork leg where the brake mount adapter is, they're all gonna be different. So that's gonna be the thing that keeps these forks for the SR and 3.0 working for the Talaria MX5 and other E-motos. You have to have the proper brake caliper adapter on the bottom of these forks in order to make all that work. So if you're trying to get this for another bike, you're not able to do that yet, but this will work directly for the SR and the 3.0 today, so you are able to purchase those for those bikes right away. All right, so I think we covered everything that's the most important. The reality is, like, do you need this? I don't know. Do you need a small frame bike with 30 kilowatts? Probably not, but we love it. If you want this bike to ride well, you want it to perform under conditions that are of the most extreme, and even if you're not riding the most extreme terrain, you want the most plush suspension, because what happens is a good suspension takes a lot of tension and stress off the rest of the bike. It also makes you feel more planted. It just gives you a better experience on the motorcycle. And I did not touch too much about the EXT Arma shock, so I want to do that real quick. The Arma shock is what Cirrus actually recommends for this bike setup. Cirrus does not have a shock that's came out for this bike or these small frame bikes as of yet. So until that happens, the best option is the EXT Arma shock. I'll put both of those in the description if you want to look at them together. Those 2 pieces are pretty much necessary if you want to run this. Having the factory shock in this bike, it definitely performs not nearly as good as the Arma shock from EXT. So it's not that you can't do it. You could just go with the forks and then just get the shock later. That's not going to be the end of the world, but a good suspension setup, a good tire pressure. There are a lot of things that go into play when it talks about just having a better experience on the bike. And I will say now, after riding this bike for as long as I have, this has become one of my favorite bikes. I'm a big frame bike guy. I like my Stark, I like my Ultra B. That's what I prefer to ride. I'm faster on those bikes just in general because I'm more comfortable on them. This has a different, it's just a different feel to it. It's just a small little thing that's a rocket ship between your legs. But if you're looking to take this bike to the next level, you really want to push the bike, or you just want to have the best suspension that you could ever have on a motorcycle, this is going to be what you need. So if there's any other questions or concerns, comments, whatever it may be, please leave those down below. I answer them every single morning, or at least I try to. We are going to put this thing through some more testing. We have a race this weekend where we're going to be racing it on a motocross track. a lot of cool things coming for this bike that we just want to see how it performs, but more importantly, how it holds up over time, getting abused by a bunch of different riders, a bunch of different skill levels, and see what we come up with at the end of the day. So that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you to at least take a look at Cirrus if you're serious about your bike. That's almost the same word twice, but I will see you guys on the next one.